John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum, directed by Chad Scalensky and once again starring Keanu Reeves as the titular John Wick. It pretty much takes off directly after part 2. If you haven't seen that movie, I think you'll be a little lost with this one. Doesn't kind of make for a, doesn't try to catch you up at all really. And we have John Wick being excommunicated and on the run from a variety of different kind of killers and gangs. Everyone kind of wanting to this massive bounty that's been put on his head. Does he have any friends left? It's kind of a somewhat of a globe-trotting adventure that leads him right back to the Continental. That's all I'll say on the plot of this one. So what works for this one for me? This is obviously a masterclass in stunt choreography. Chad Scalensky originally started as a stuntman, so you'd expect that kind of area to deliver, and it certainly does. And this movie is just chock full of impressive stunts that tries to outdo each single one every single time. And Keanu Reeves really has this role now done. I think he's so much kind of fun with very little dialogue, to be fair. But he's this kind of like effortlessly cool character, John Wick, that you know is both kind of like somewhat kind of a nice guy, but also a super badass as well. I mean, this movie is all about the action. Plus, this one has one of my favourite B-movie character actors in the form of Mark Dacascos. That's like kind of our main bad guy with a great kind of fight scene here. You've also got a couple of guys you recognise from The Raid in also probably the best fight scene in the movie, if I'm completely honest. But what doesn't work for me, now this may be controversial because I actually think this is the weakest in the series. So yeah, I know this movie is getting a lot of praise from a lot of reviews, but I thought this was quite weak, with the exception of how the action is directed. The action is great. When you're seeing it on screen, yeah, it looks great, and that is fantastic. But for a story element, this was weak to me because it didn't really have much in the way of a story, to be honest with you. It's just John Wick getting chased through the whole movie, really. And here's where I had the real problem with it. For me, it's just like, if you can imagine, you had a movie where someone's just fighting stormtroopers endlessly. So a group of stormtroopers turns up, someone fights them, another group of stormtroopers turns up, that you fight them. It's almost like that. The bulk of this movie, well, nearly all of it, is John Wick, and then sometimes with another partner like Halle Berry or Lance Reddick, fighting faceless minions, all of whom we know that there's no stakes. We know that obviously John Wick is going to triumph. Yeah, it looks good, but you never really feel like it's kind of going to turn out any other way. With the exception, mate, you know, even at the end, to be honest with you, where we have our boss fights, like the guys in the Raid and then Mark Dacascos, it's just one action set piece after another with a load of faceless bad guys. And be honest with you, I found it a little dull. And I just wanted it to get on with the story points. And there's not that many of them, if we're honest. I thought the first movie had that initial concept, and it based an interesting story on that. And the second movie was, it felt like more of a continuation. This one feels like it's just stretching it out. And I've got to say, the other thing that I found a little kind of not disappointing, but less so with this film, is it just stretches the plausibility. Now, I think, yeah, the original movie, everything about that is kind of obviously far-fetched. But to me, part 2 again it kind of expanded the universe and became a little bit more far-fetched, but still kind of, I would say, just about believable. This one, I just think it pushes it over the top. I mean, there just seems to be nearly everyone in New York seems to be involved in this kind of like this assassin kind of culture. It defies the laws of physics and kind of what is kind of believable in regards to what a human body can do and what it can take. And just the kind of the OTT nature of it and kind of trying to expand this world from what became a very personal story from the first movie about this guy, you know, trying to kind of get away from the life, and by having that kind of that dog, for example, and then Goons kind of killing it, and that really representing the love of his love of his wife. You know, it just kind of has gone very much away from that, and just to kind of like an OTT action scene, some travelling, OTT action scene with faceless bad guys travelling somewhere else, talking to someone, OTT action scene with the faceless bad guys. And I've got to say, I found it quite dull. Like I've said, I don't mean the action scenes are directed in a dull manner. They're all great, they look great, but they're just not, there's just not that much kind of investment in them, because they're just faceless minions. And I just feel maybe the first and second movies, you actually felt like at least some of the bad guys had a bit of character to them. Even in this one, a lot of them, they're kind of wearing, you know, motorcycle helmets, or, you know, at the end, a lot of them are wearing like the gas masks and stuff to kind of take away from their humanity, I suppose. But it just reminds me of like stormtroopers, the faceless kind of bad guys. And as such, I just felt that it's like watching. Here's how I would describe my feeling to this one. It's like watching someone play a video game on God mode. You just, you know, it's all pretty and explosions and stuff, but it gets a bit boring because you're just watching the same thing over and over. Anyway, that might be a controversial opinion. I know people are going nuts for it and all that, but for me, it was just an okay action film with some good stunt work, but story-wise, I felt this movie was pretty weak. So I'm going to give this one, I'll give it a 6 out of 10, because it's a well-made film. And if you just want to watch exciting action sequences, and you don't mind that there's really no stakes in it, then great. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Anyone else share my view, or are you all huge fans of this one? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.